Hello everyone and welcome! Last year we handed out the first Necrit awards. Awards that call out the best of Riot's work that year. And because I got a lot of requests to bring it back this year too, today we'll have a look at the entire year of 2017. Just like last year, this year we will rank champions, stories and events based on 5 different categories. These categories are Best Visual Design, Best Champion Gameplay Design, Best Voiceover, Best Event Story, Best Champion Story, and finally a new category, Best Story Improvement. Keep in mind that we will rank everything released in 2017, and this includes champion releases, champion reworks, and even minor story tweaks. And because we have a lot to go through, let's get started. Best Visual Design. In this category we will ignore all story and gameplay, and we will check out the looks of base champions and reworks of 2017. Skins don't count. So this year we got 5 new champions, these being Rakan the Charmer, Xayah the Rebel, Kayn the Shadow Reaper, Ornn the Fire Below the Mountain, and Zoe the Aspect of Twilight. And then we got 4 champions with visual reworks, these being Warwick, Galio, Urgot, and Evelynn. So, at number 3 in the best visual design, we have Xayah and Rakan. I couldn't really separate the two since they are both using the same theme. The reason why I place Xayah and Rakan at number 3 is because they fit what they are supposed to represent. And because there is so much more to their design than what meets the eye. The two each have a feathery cloak that represents one half of their relationship. And although they are both using the same theme, you can easily separate them from each other, and that is something that's not so easy to pull off. Part of this is the fact that they each have their own color scheme. Rakan has white hair and golden cloak, while Xayah has violet hair and purple cloak. The beautiful thing about their design is that they each have parts referencing the other half. Rakan has a bird-like skull with Xayah's feathers on his chest, and Xayah has a bird-like skull with Rakan's feathers on her shoulder. All of this is topped off by their animations. Not only do they have special animations interacting with each other, but their movements reflect their characters. Rakan is a dancer. You can see his movement is fluid and all animations seamlessly blend into each other. Xayah, on the other hand, is very sharp and ready for anything. Her moves are very swift and quickly snap into place. Overall, these two champions perfectly represent their characters. At number 2, we have Urgot. While Urgot's story felt like it was missing a deeper progression, simply because there wasn't enough time to establish the character, his visuals easily make up for it. His lower half was replaced with horrifying machinery, while his upper half kept a terrifying uncanny valley look. Everything about Urgot evokes horror, and that's exactly what he's meant to do. His legs are armed with massive shotguns, they light up with green fire when loaded, his arm was replaced with a grinding shrapnel cannon, his blank dead eyes, his breathing mask filled with green liquid. And don't get me started on the meat grinder. All of this is well supported by the sound effects. When his shotgun fires, you can feel the impact. When he hits a character, blood splatters around. And it gets even gorier if he catches someone in the grinder. Let me just say that the in-game fear after grinding someone is very justified. Urgot is a well-crafted terror machine. And the best visual design of 2017 goes to Ornn. There is no doubt in my mind that Ornn is one of the best designs League has ever had. League is slowly collecting all the possible archetypes, so it was obvious that eventually we would get a blacksmith in-game. But I didn't expect such a badass character. Ornn is a godlike blacksmith who shaped the very lands around him, and when you look at his design, you can tell that's exactly what he can do. This Nordic legendary theme is very well reflected in his appearance. Massive ram horns, blacksmith tool harness, beard with flaming beads, and his dwarf-like proportions, even though he is actually a giant. Everything about him screams the words blacksmith from deep inside the mountain. His horns are on fire, his eyes are on fire, and his entire hand is fused with magma. He also breathes fire. He can ram into enemies, and he can summon a giant ram companion. He even carries an anvil and a hammer since those are his favorite tools. I expected Braum-like human blacksmith, and we got a badass godlike being, with a friendly bird to accompany him, and I couldn't be happier about it. Best Champion Design. In this category, the priority is how the champion feels when you play them. A great example from last year is Jhin. It's a champion that makes you feel like an insane murderer no matter what you're doing in game. So this year we're looking at something similar. A champion that just feels right. So, at number 3 in the best champion gameplay design, we have Zoe. I know she is hated by many, but boy is she fun to play. Zoe gives you a brand new perspective on how to play a champion. Usually you try to bait out your opponent's summoner spells, so you have an advantage next time you engage. But that's not how Zoe works. If the enemy uses their summoner spells, that's a window for you to kill them. She also brings in 2 unique abilities. Her Q gains more damage the better you are at sniping from a distance. This brings in the feeling of playing the old Nidalee, except this time it's fair. And her pseudo mobility has more uses the more you play her. You may think her ultimate is useless, but the more you play her, the more you realize you can dodge spells with it, turn fights around with extra Q distance, and you can use it to angle your bubble through terrain. And speaking of her bubble, it's a brand new kind of CC as well. If you make someone fall asleep, you can keep them away from a teamfight, or you can use the time to line up a perfect Q bomb. Zoe is just the trickster she was intended to be. At number 2, we have Kayn. Kayn is yet another champion who brought new interactions into the game. His transformation ability has a lot of potential that people don't realize. People say it's held back by the fact that you can't choose which form you want to have, but that's simply not true. You can pick a form by ganking a certain champion. In fact, it teaches you the most effective way to play jungle. You sit one lane and make the enemy team 4v5. Kayn's tools also follow the fantasy of a Shadow Reaper. You dash around, use massive AoE slashes with your scythe, and you can even blend into the walls. This is simply a great idea to support the fantasy of shadows being your weapons. The only ability that feels out of place, but it's an ability that follows the shadow theme, is his ultimate. His ultimate is supposed to reflect what Zed does. He marks an enemy for a huge burst damage. But for Kayn it just doesn't deal enough damage and it doesn't feel impactful. The rest of his kit, however, is amazing. Ever since the first day I had so much fun playing Kayn, even though I'm not good at him. And the best champion gameplay design of 2017 goes to Warwick. Once again, Warwick is a champion that feels exactly the way he should. He's a brutal hunter who swiftly dashes through his environment before leaping onto his prey. If you look at Warwick's cinematic teaser, and then you look at him in game, you may notice that he's almost exactly the same. The moment you catch someone's scent and gain the movement speed, you feel like a bloodthirsty monster. You can also easily stick to your prey with unique Q interactions, and you can even fear people. It is interesting how such a basic idea as a speed boost from dying enemies can bring so much life into his gameplay. You're fast, you can stick to your targets, you can pin down targets, you can fear your enemies, and you can take a lot of damage. Overall, Warwick feels like an unstoppable hunter, and that's exactly what the team wanted to create. There's not much more I can say about it. Best Voiceover. This category is relatively simple. We're looking for a champion whose voice can stand out, it fits the character, and it may even enhance the gameplay feeling. So at number 3 in the best voiceover, we have Urgot, voiced by Paul Guyot. I really wanted to mention Urgot's voice in the gameplay category, but in the end it shouldn't affect it. Here, however, I can say that Urgot's voice really underlines the entire Monster Terror Machine theme. His grim, deep voice is supported by the echoey effects of his breathing mask. His lines are also dark because of his history. Combined, Urgot shines through power and brutal leadership.
If they could only comprehend the truth of the dredge, I wouldn't need to drive it into their skulls. It is time for them to die. Controlling them will be simple, with my hand around their throats.
At number 2, we have Evelynn. Evelyn's voice actress is one of the few who are uncredited. All we know is that apparently she also voiced Syndra. And that is a shame because Evelyn's voice is one of the best in League. Funnily enough, some players complained on the boards that she is too sexual and that her moaning is highly inappropriate. I disagree, because that is who Evelyn is. She is a demon whose goal is to seduce mortals. She is supposed to be over the top because she is inhuman. Nothing she does is really natural. So, here's a short taste of what she's about.
Let's find your spot, love. Everyone's pain tastes different. What flavor is yours? Come on, let's see those tears. Aw, you thought you were getting lucky.
Before we call out the number 1, let's go through some honorable mentions. Rakan,
I'm here to party!
Ornn,
Anvil time!
Star Guardian Ahri,
Starlight binds us.
Galio,
Wanna go?
Zoe.
Ridiculous!
And the best voiceover of 2017 goes to Godfist Lee Sin, voiced by Vic Mignogna, who also voiced Base Lee Sin. The reason why in the end I picked Lee Sin is because his voice alone tells us perfectly what kind of a character Godfist Lee Sin is. Originally I wanted to pick Rakan as number 1 because he does exactly the same thing. Rakan can also show us who he is only with his voice. But Lee Sin is a layer above that. You see, outside of his voice, we have nothing to learn about this skin. Godfist Lee Sin has no lore, no short story, no mentions anywhere, and the only thing we have is his voice. Yet we know that he is an arrogant godlike being who ascended to his power through conviction. So in the end, Lee Sin was my final choice.
I search for a worthy opponent. They dare to challenge a god? Let them try. They fear my approach. They will flee before me. They will tremble in awe.
Best Event Story. In this category I want to have a look at different regions and events as a whole. Here I won't judge individual champion stories, but I will sum up the overall story progression with multiple stories combined. Also, last year we gave credit to whoever wrote the specific stories, but Riot mostly has entire teams working on them, so I'll try to credit certain writers when I can, but of course it is all teamwork. So let's have a look at number 3 in the best event story. Zone. Zone's update was published on the 12th of January, but later it included more stories. In the end it contained the stories of Echo, Jenna, CZECH, Victor, Blitzcrank, Dr. Mundo, Twitch and Urgot. On top of that we had bonus stories like the City of Iron and Glass. Zone is very well put together. Each champion reveals a tiny bit of what Zone is all about. But only if you read all of them do you know that Zone is a grim but beautiful place. We learned that Zone is ran by cruel barons, there are scientists developing and selling weapons, people die here on daily basis, but this environment forges stronger friendships. Everyone wants to survive another night, so they all invent their own ways of living. Some work like slaves so they don't stand out. Some bend the rules so they climb up the ladder. Some bend the rules to help the poor. And some try to get augments which give them advantages. What made this region so good for me is how everything is relatable. Everything here feels real and everything has a reason to it. And it is the real stories that leave you with something to think about. I could go deeper into the stories, but that would spoil the next category. At number 2, we have the Star Guardian story. I'll be honest here. Starfall is a story I wish was a part of the main universe. Obviously the Star Guardian universe is a separate thing, but that doesn't mean we can't rank it as an event. Starfall revamped 10 characters we knew, and it gave them new stories. There is also a new enemy who very closely resembles the Void. That's why I wish it was part of the main universe. These bug-like creatures are swarming the galaxy and the Star Guardians are fighting them back. We even got glimpses of the history of the Star Guardian universe. We learned that there was something called the First Light, which created the Star Guardians to fight the darkness. Overall, Starfall set up a new world with a new story that has a huge potential. I wonder if it progresses forward every year. And before we jump into number 1, here are 2 honorable mentions I want to talk about. First of all, the project lore. I don't want to say too much because it all might be a spoiler. and it is a story I still want to cover in the future. But let me just say that this is another universe with a great potential. The second one is Ionia, a region that received a lot of new lore, including the Darkin, Noxus invasion, and the Vastaya. Edward Sant'Angelo Vastaya Field Journal was a brilliant thing. It set up a brand new race in this universe. But for me, it was beaten by one more region. So the best event story goes to Demacia. Specifically the story for Demacia. For me, this was one of the best, if not the best, story piece in League. I wanted to credit a single person here, but Demacia is a team effort. In fact, here's a list of all the artists, writers and other writers who worked on it. For Demacia is a story that doesn't feel like a story anymore. It feels more like a book. In fact, my video covering for Demacia is the second longest video on this channel, right behind Starfall. Both of these stories are around 50 minutes long, which is nearly a short movie length. And they are even structured that way. They have a setup in the beginning, a twist in the middle, and escalation at the end. I love how Demacia isn't portrayed as a good or bad side. Especially looking at Lux's story, you can tell that Demacians are definitely not all good and shiny. There's a lot of dirty background too. On top of that, the story is also revealing the backgrounds of some unnamed outdated champions, which is also a bonus. So, if you're into classic medieval fantasy stories, you'll have a blast going through Demacia. There are knights, monsters, dragons and magic. Best Champion Story. This category will be very personal and a lot of people will like different stories more. But these are the 3 stories that really stuck with me this year. So at number 3 in the Best Champion Story, we have Ornn. I think a lot of you will agree with me that Ornn is just a well-rounded champion. What I love about his stories is that it's not just all about him. Not only is his story told by a storyteller, but it is divided into a few different tales. We can see Ornn interacting with the 3 sisters, the Ice Trolls, and even other demigods like Anivia or Volibear. On top of that, we learned that Ornn is the one who shaped the lands around Freljord. I don't want to go into spoilers because there are a lot of people who still haven't seen it, but if you are into Nordic mythology, go and have a look at Ornn. At number 2, we have Vayne. Again, I don't want to spoil anything, but there is that one scene, and you all know what scene I am talking about, that stopped me while reading the story. And that has never happened to me before. There has never been a scene that would force me to stop in order to recollect my thoughts on what just happened. And that moment alone was so powerful I knew I had to rank this story high. What is also nice is that Vayne's story foreshadowed Evelyn, so we know that these stories were thought through really well. So if you wanna have a look at some demon hunting action, have a look at Vayne. I just wish I knew who wrote her story. And the Best Champion Story of 2017 goes to Victor. Now, many people may be confused, but I stand strong about this. Just remember that this is my opinion. Victor's story is great because it has many layers. It all begins if you read Jace's story. There you can learn that Victor is just an asshole who wanted to steal Jace's hex crystal for the sake of it. And as I remember, a lot of people were mad that Victor is now just a jerk. But if you read Victor's own story, which was released a month after Jace, you can learn that things are very different from his point of view. I want to specifically avoid saying anything that would spoil his view for you, because Victor's idea is really smart and it is much deeper than you might think. Also, his story is full of references to other Piltover and Zonaite stories, especially Camille's story. And that is what's probably the best thing about this story. After you read his lore, it will make you think about how humanity really works, especially if you combine it with Blitzcrank's story. So if you're a scientific guy and you love some steampunk sci-fi, you will love Victor's story as well. And now onto the last category. Best Story Improvement. This category will focus on all the champions that got their stories revamped. Here it is important to look at the story and compare it to its old version. The better the story became, the higher it will place. So, let's have a look at number 3 in the Best Story Improvement. Lux. Lux went from, hey, I'm a mage in a city that hates mages, to, hey, I'm a highborn girl with powers I can't contain and touching anything in my city will make me feel like I'm dying. Also, there's a giant golem I can wake up. Lux's story actually became much deeper than I expected, and it is a brilliant story that showcases what Demacia is all about. At number 2, we have Varus. For Varus it was a straight up upgrade. In its core the story is the same. The main character sacrificed himself during the invasion to bring back something he lost. But the fact that Varus is now 2 different souls and a Darkin is just a layer above it. The best way to describe Varus is just by saying that he is an interesting character, because that's exactly what he is. A unique character unlike anything else in League. And the best story improvement of 2017 goes to Ahri. Ahri's story is just straight up amazing. She went from being a fox in a magic land to a Vastaya who devours memories against her own will to sate her hunger. Ahri's story is very deep, detailed, and it just leaves you in another place emotionally. I highly recommend looking into Ahri, as she reveals more of the magical places in Ionia. And these were my awards of 2017. Of course, everything here is based on my opinion. So if you think there are better stories than those I mentioned, feel free to tell me. We had an amazing year full of great stories and unpredictable twists, so let's wish for an even greater one. But that's it for this video. If you liked it, feel free to rate it and subscribe for more lore. You can also follow us on Twitter, Facebook and Discord if you'd like to chat. Special thanks goes to our patrons for the extra support. And with that, thank you all so much for being here and for your support. You know I really appreciate it. And for the last time this year, as always, thank you, come again.